Welcome to Let's Talk About It with Sons and Daughters. I am your host, Arden, and today I am joined with my brother and wife, Austin and Christian.
His brother and wife.
Yeah, no, I'm the brother, that's the wife.
In that order, yes. Not to be confused
Hopefully
with anything
you're watching
else.
this.
That's funny because that gave me anxiety just thinking about that. But that's actually what we're talking about today is we actually want to take an episode to be able to talk about anxiety because we feel like this is an important topic to talk about. Something that a lot of people try to shy away from. We've gotten a lot of requests. So I thought it would be great just to have a conversation. But before that, I wanted to ask you guys some icebreaker questions, as you guys know that we do. So just having a little bit fun with it. And the first question I wanted to ask you guys, if you could become an expert in anything, like instantly, like if I just snapped my fingers and you instantly became an expert in anything, what would it be?
Okay, so I have practical and then non-practical. Practical would be any kind of physics. So any like
Really?
Yeah, I love that, and I would love to build a spaceship or something like that. So that's that reason. And then unpractically, I would like to master the Force.
Master the Force.
That would be fantastic. And throw a lightsaber in there.
Okay. Well, I think we've got to get the Force first as a real thing. And
Right, that's why I said it was unrealistic.
Unrealistic.
Yeah,
Okay.
prefaced it.
You said unpractical, but I think unrealistic is the better word.
That's the better word. We'll fix that. But.
I like that method, though. I think my practical would be interior design because I love interior design.
She's a great interior designer.
Yeah, but I'm not an expert in it, so we would go that. My impractical or unrealistic, I think would be reading minds. I just think that'd be awesome. I don't know if that's something you can be an expert in.
But yeah.
That's just the first thing that came to mind is reading minds.
Is reading minds.
Amazing. Yeah, that wasn't exactly what I was thinking, but that's great. I thought you were going to say the piano, actually, so it shows how much I know about you as a husband.
I would take it. I think I would want to expert in too many things.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, let me ask this. Because we are talking about anxiety, I want to ask you, what is the weirdest thing that gives you an anxiety? You know, could it be that, when your phone's on 10% or below, or when your gas tank light is on? What's something weird that gives you guys anxiety?
So I know for sure in high school, we had those chalkboards. This was like pre-whiteboard. But we would have chalkboards, and my friend would run his fingers down the chalkboard. I know. It hurt so bad. And he would make me like do it myself. His name's Jake. He's like my best friend, and he would say, "Face your fears," and he'd scratch the chalkboard and I'd be in the class and be like, "You gotta stop this. You just gotta stop." So that's something that definitely gives me anxiety is nails on chalkboards.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That is not a fun sound at all. Mm-mm. Christian?
So mine's a little weird. I think some people can relate to it, but instead of like claustrophobia, I'm more scared of open things. And I think it's technically called astrophobia, like the idea of being in space and just being surrounded by like a vast darkness, or like out in the middle of the ocean, you can't see anything. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like you don't know what's coming. It freaks me out, and I don't know why.
That's pretty impressive though, because when we're in Florida, you went way out on the paddleboard. Was that like a face your fears moment?
I think if I fell in, I think when I can see through and I can see the bottom, I'm fine. But if I fell in and it was completely pitch black, I would assume that a great white shark was underneath me, and I would probably swim faster than Michael Phelps to get back to the shore.
It is funny how we always or when in water, think there's a shark right next to us. Or like, I'm just going to risk it, especially when you can't see around. So yes, that would be something that causes anxiety. I like that. I've not heard that one from a lot of people. So let me ask this. We're coming out of quarantine. Some people are going into quarantine. But
choose your quarantine.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was a lot of TV shows and movies that were watched by people. So I want to ask you guys, and let's say the last few years, what has been the movie or TV show that has caused you the most anxiety? I'll say for me, it was definitely Mad Max, Fury Road, because I felt like watching that movie, the new one, not the old one, probably felt like what it was to be like on acid, basically. I could not understand that movie. It was an amazing movie. It's
great.
Love the actors. I don't know why I think it's amazing, but it was a great movie. But a lot of weird stuff that gave me a little bit of anxiety. So what movie or TV show?
So I would say one that comes to mind is the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock, because the whole movie, she just has a problem after problems after problems.
That's Christian's the worst nightmare.
Yeah, and it's in space.
Astrophobia.
Like I probably stole yours, but yeah, that, or when I'm watching a show and I know the main character is about to be like set up for some trap, and everybody who's watching knows it, but they don't know it, and it really like just bothers me. I'm like, you are walking into a problem. And so that kind of gives me anxiety, because I'm like, I can't talk to you, but just don't go in that room.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like, they're about to be
Yeah.
like, killed or something, and you're like,
Or,
just don't
yeah,
open the door. Don't
Kidnapped.
do it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't watch scary movies. Arden, being married to you.
Is that what gives you anxiety?
Yeah. I was going to say.
No, I think with you, I see more like random memes and like Anchorman clips and just like all these weird vines that make me more anxious. No. The bad lip reading, like Star Wars
my
edition.
gosh.
Those are
It's
great.
just like, they're so ridiculous, and I can hear them in my sleep now because Arden plays them so much. So I would say those give me more anxiety than any movie.
Those are amazing. For those who don't know what that is, just look up bad lip reading Star Wars, and there's a Yoda song that's
Don't do
called
it.
Seagulls Stop It Now. It's well worth your time.
And my stick. That's another good
And my
one.
stick. Yep. Yeah. So, all right. Well, getting into the discussion, talking about anxiety, I wanted to ask us, because this is more of a serious topic. So I want to start off right up from the gate, is how can we as believers overcome or navigate anxiety?
We're on this path of you starting.
All right, I'll
so-
start. So I was thinking about this today, and something that's really helped is the thought that it's robbing you of now. And so anxiety is putting all your focus on the future. And so if you can almost get angry about it and be like, this is robbing me of my right now, I think that helps you kind of focus on where you're at in the present, enjoy where you're at, and kind of live in a way where it's like, I'm okay with not knowing what's coming next, and I'm going to be fine with that, because honestly, we can't control everything. And so just being okay with that and being like, I know what's happening right now, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
No, that's awesome, because I think in my journey with overcoming anxious thoughts has been that same mindset of like, I have to see this as something that is actually robbing me, because I hear a lot of times when we have conversations around this with people, believers and unbelievers alike, when we take anxiety to a clinical degree of like, this is just something I can't control, it's something that happens to me and I just have no power over it, that is debilitating. That does feel like, I feel like in the same breath gives you more anxiety, just because you think, like you said, we can't control it, but we actually can. And I remember anxiety was just something that I had to overcome in high school and in college. And I had a mentor in college that sat me down, and she just said, do you know that you have the authority over this? And it sounded so like something I should know, especially as a believer, but then at the same time, just so unorthodox, because for so long I had felt victim to it rather than a victor. And just with her saying that, I began to, in my mind, say, like, almost get mad about it. Like, you're telling me this whole time I have had the power to cut this out of my life, and I haven't felt the ability to do so. And I just remember when I took that mentality of making it not a clinical thing that's happened to me, but it's a thought pattern of recognizing it and identifying it as that, I began to have more power over it, and I began to take authority back. And honestly, just that hate the sin kind of mentality, not hate myself for going through anxious thoughts, but hate what was happening to me and getting mad about it enough to fight for it and to fight for that healthy mindset.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that shift to mindset, because I remember when the biggest time probably I felt anxiety was when I was working in Virginia Beach, and I was working for an amazing man, but I remember I was so stressed out that I wanted to get everything perfectly right for him, and I didn't want to do things wrong. I didn't want to make a mistake on stuff. And I remember I stressed before I even did the thing, and I would have anxiety about the actual thing. And I remember I had a phone call with Addison, and I just told him, I'm like, I'm constantly living in stress and anxiety because I think I'm going to mess up. And he said, well, what you're doing is you're doubling the stress and anxiety that you're actually going through, because he says you do not know what the outcome's going to be. And he said, you're continuing to stress about it, have this anxiety about it, and you're building and working yourself up before anything actually happens. And something could not, nothing could go wrong, and then there could be no problem, or something could go wrong, and I would stress and worry about the things that actually went wrong. And so I like that understanding of, understanding it's anxiety comes from normally not knowing what the future holds. And we can't do anything by just stressing and worrying about what is to come. Something I love is that saying that says, you assess your problem, accept the worst case scenario, and then move forward. Like, just everything from there is going to be up. So I love that. Kind of, Christian, you mentioned the mindset side of things. I want to ask, kind of for more of the practical, physical side of things, are antidepressants medicine suitable for believers? Because I think this is a big topic that a lot of people have, because there can be the people that say, no, you just got to believe. And then there's the other side that says, well, God created, doctors and medicine. So, I want that if it's going to benefit me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say just upfront as a disclaimer, as far as medicine goes, it's not something that I have done a deep dive of. No, there's only one side of this. It's either right or it's wrong. I think for this question, I just, implement my personal experiences. And when I was in high school, I had a good friend that was on antidepressants, and a few months later, unfortunately, ended up taking her life. And I would not point my finger at the medicine being the thing that made her do that. And I wouldn't point it at the thing that made her better for the months before. I do know, in hindsight, if I had those months before when she was still with us and I could go back, I would be pointing her to the transformational power of Jesus' love and his strength rather than the medicine. I don't think we point it out as the problem, but I do think we point to whether you're on or you're not on medicine. Jesus is the ultimate, the most powerful thing that can help us with our mindsets, with our physical problems, with any kind of healing, whether it's of a thought or something that is clinically wrong with you. I still believe that Jesus has the most power over anything. So I would encourage anyone that has wondered about that, like, should I be on this or should I not? More so just with whatever decision you decide, to still be seeking Jesus as the answer. Like, not to let medicine be the thing that's almost like a crutch of, well, I'm going to get on this medicine, and if it gets better, then it gets better. Like, no matter what you're doing in that journey with fighting that thing that is stealing from you, keep going to Jesus about it, keep praying, and keep asking for that healing, because God wants to see us all healed. That's something I truly believe. Austin, I don't know if you have any other insight on that question.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing podcasts, but on topics like this, they are very, especially when it comes to medicine and stuff like that, it's very personal. And so I would almost rather be sitting across from the table with someone to kind of assess where they're at. Yeah. I've talked to counselors about this, people who are in the medical field, and it's kind of, I kind of like the explanation of one that I got. I feel like the medicine can help if there's chemical imbalance or something like that, or even if there's not, it can help kind of in the transformation process to get your emotions back to a healthy state. But I think what Christian said is right on. You really have to keep a pulse on how dependent you are being on that medication. And I think if you're doing it to shield yourself from feeling certain things, that can become very dangerous. And some of those, you could call them sad emotions or what we would perceive as almost negative emotions. It's sometimes helpful to actually feel those things. That way you can make a change, or that way you can realize, hey, I don't want to continue to do this. And so I think it's a case-by-case basis, and I'd have a hard time saying, oh yeah, go get whatever drugs you need. I would want to advise a person. And so if someone's listening and they're like, should I do this? Should I not? I would recommend talk to God about it. Just be like, hey, God, where am I at right now with all this? And then also find someone you trust, maybe a couple people, and get their counsel on it. Because I do have friends where it's helped a lot, but as Christian said, there's been times where it may have led people put people in a place where they did not want to be mentally. And so that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I love that you said, don't, not suppressing those emotions or suppressing things, because they've actually, the study shows that people who navigate and deal with anxiety and depression are actually people who are deeper feelers. They're people that honestly can love a lot, love a lot stronger, love deeper, I should say, not stronger, but deeper. And they feel different things a lot deeper. And that's why they navigate those, maybe sometimes we'll say negative emotions in different ways, because they're feeling things a lot deeper. And so it's not that it's a weakness, it's actually a strength. I know for me, I've been trying to, as I've gotten married, actually tap in more into my feelings and the emotions that I actually do. And so I would encourage you first not to look at that as something that you have to get rid of, but something that is actually a strength in your life. And so next question I want to ask you guys is, how have you guys overcome this area in your guys' life? I know you've given a couple of examples, but just wanted to ask more maybe practical ways that you've done this.
I love practical questions.
Yeah.
I have a very practical answer for this. So I call it the study method, and you can try this. It's worked really well for me. But basically, when I was in college, I hated studying for tests. And I would always think about studying for tests. Oh, I have to study for this test. I have this test on Monday. And I remember actually when I started studying for the test, it really wasn't that bad. The thing that was the worst part was thinking about needing to study for the test. And I think when it comes to anxiety, you can kind of use this. Normally, we inflate our anxiety in our mind way bigger than it actually is. And so what I've learned is just kind of thinking about what is the worst possible thing that could happen, and being like, wow, that actually happening isn't as bad as me, or like most of the time, it's not as bad as me just worrying about it and all the anxiety I have towards this and the way it's making me feel right now. And so that really empowers me to be like, hey, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, because the only thing worse than this thing happening is me just worrying about it happening right now.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's really good. I love that. Christian, you have anything?
Yeah, I feel like for me, mine is less practical, so I'm glad we started with Austin's. But for me, I had to do a deep dive into what was actually making me anxious. And for me, there was just a season in my life where this was kind of the dominant thing, and I am a deep feeler. So for me, it was unhealthy to get into this place of feeling these deep, overwhelming, anxious thoughts and kind of staying there, not getting the help I need, not having the conversations I needed. So I like to look at 1 Peter 5, especially 5-7, and it's the verse that says, like, cast your anxieties on him. And we love to use that verse, but for me, I had to go back to, okay, what does it say before that? And it says to humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. So for me, I had to really assess, why am I so anxious? What am I doing? How am I living? And it's making me this way. And again, this is personal. I'm not saying every form of anxiety comes from something you're doing wrong. But for me, I had been a follower of Christ for so long. I was raised in a Christian home. But at the time, I was trusting more in what I wanted to see happen in my life. I was straying away from God's will, more of like, I wanted to get into this college, like I want to date this person, I want my life to look like this, rather than just pressing in and leaning to where God was taking me. And so that separate journey almost, or that separate path that I was trying to go on, there was such a tug, I had to do it on my own, that it was making me feel out of control. So I had to get to that place of like humbling myself to accept that maybe I was putting more pressure on myself than I should have. Maybe I wasn't following God the way I should be doing. And for me, that was the biggest shift in going back to God, going back to his plan and asking him to intervene and just interrupt anything that I was doing. That was, for me, the biggest healing moment. Of course, there was other circumstances and other just training my thoughts and getting that right mindset behind when it would come. Because I think with anxiety, it's similar to any area of life. When we ask God to come and heal us, there's a common misconception to think, okay, God touched it, it's whole, it's healed, like I'm perfectly okay. But we have to remember not to give him more credit, but the enemy's always going to try to attack us at our weakest point. So it takes that daily reaffirming that daily, getting into the right mindset, like the building the muscles in that category where we were weak and getting strong. So for me, anytime that anxiety would try to come back, it was speaking the word of God. It was tapping into that authority and realizing that I don't have to be a victim to this. I had to get that victor mentality that came with the practicing of just doing that on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. I think something too that I've actually found pretty practical and just kind of honestly something that we miss and we haven't even talked about yet is honestly the need for community, the need for friendships. The Bible talks about exhorting, encouraging one another daily. And I think about when you think about encouraging someone, you've got to know what's going on in their life. Like you can, if you tell someone like, hey, you're amazing, like, and you keep telling them that every single day, it's going to get kind of watered down. But when you actually know what's going on in people's life, you know exactly what to speak into. And so I think a lot of times when we start feeling these things, we want to pull away from people rather than bringing into the things that are going on in our mind. And I think that is something that is so important that we must look to. We must have community, healthy people around us that we can share what we're going through, and they're able to encourage us daily on those things that we are going through, things that we're navigating, so that we don't have to do it alone, so that we don't continue to keep sinking in despair. And I would encourage it to be people that are godly, because I think there's some people that you can get in conversation, share those things with, and you can just they sink further and further with them. You leave the conversation and you just feel heavier than you did before, rather than the uplifted and encouraged than when you started that conversation. So unfortunately, we're pretty close to being out of time. So I wanted to ask you guys, just in this last 2 minutes, we always do the thing where you get 2 minutes to talk about something that you want. So I actually want to direct this question at Christian. Austin, you can chime in if there's anything. But Christian, I feel like we had not heard from you. So what is something that you want to talk about? And if there's anything that we missed that you guys want to cover as well, we can go right back to it in this time. But Christian, what is something that you want to talk about?
Ooh, pressure's on. I think what you just said has so much weight, and like you said, it is something we haven't touched on much. So I'd like to use my 2 minutes for that. Thank you. I would, being someone that is a deep feeler, a deep thinker, I think we can put a negative emphasis on emotions. You hear someone say, you're emotional, like you're sensitive, and you're like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be that way. But I think emotions, especially when it comes to anxiety and things like this, being able to go deep is such a strength, and it's something when you're in a healthy mindset and you're able to use that as a strength. It's helped us in our marriage. It's helped me in my own personal journey. So I would say if you are in those communities, if you are going through something and it does feel heavy, don't be afraid to go deep, but know how to use it as a tool. So know if I'm going to assess where I am and it feels heavy, I need to go talk to someone. If I'm in this place of just overwhelming joy, I need to share that with someone. I think we can get so caught up on our day in and day out busyness that we don't feel like it's a necessity to take time to assess where we are, to take time to feel things deeply. So I would encourage you, if you're watching this, whether you've struggled with anxiety or you haven't, just to kind of nip things in the bud. Like before something can make you feel overwhelmed, like just take the time to assess where you are. If it's by a week, if it's every day, just take the time to tackle your thoughts before they overwhelm you.
I love that. Austin, do you have anything final thoughts that you want to share with people?
I do. It'll be real quick. But back to like kind of what we're talking about with anxiety. Something that helped me so much was Hosea 4:6 says, basically, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And I remember when I was dealing with certain anxious thoughts, I would think to myself, oh, I'm in unbelief if I, try to fix this myself. Or I kind of almost had this thought that God should take it away. And what God began to teach me was, hey, Austin, you should research kind of what you're afraid of or what you're anxious about and figure out if it even has validity. And so, like, just to give you an example, let's say you're afraid to go or you're anxious about going in the water, like the ocean, because the shark's out there. Well, something that I would do is I'd be like, okay, there's maybe 50 shark attacks a year. I have no clue how many. Arden, do you know?
I don't, actually.
It's probably not even 50. And then every year you have hundreds of millions of people who go into the water. And so the odds of me getting attacked by a shark are so low. And so stuff like that would help me kind of like walk through, hey, I'm going to be okay. Or if it was a health thing and I was like, I'm concerned about my health in this way, I would research it. And when I remember when I'd start researching something, at first there would be a lot of fear around it because you almost want to avoid it completely. Sometimes you don't even want to think about it. But I began to realize as I dove more into it, I realized, man, this is completely irrational oftentimes. And so I would encourage people, like, get past that initial anxiety of like even thinking about it and actually figure out like, hey, does this hold any weight? And if it does, I'm going to do the things I can do. But other than that, I'm going to give it up to God and not worry about it, not let it consume me. And so just wanted to kind of give that tip. That's another practical thing you can do is just get the knowledge of what's going on.
I love that. That's amazing. You know, and actually fun fact, because knowledge, you're talking about knowledge, is that more people die from vending machines and cows than they do from shark attacks.
Is that vending machines and cows combined or just individually?
Individually,
wow.
Yep. People die from trying to tip over vending machines to get their food out. So
was it worth it?
Yeah. So let's focus on the real killers here, right? Vending machines and cows. But guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. If this is something that you guys want us to continue talking on, please leave us a comment. Let us know what topics you guys want us to comment on. Last thing that we talked about was community. And if you guys are lacking community right now, we'd encourage you to look at becoming a Sons and Daughters ambassador. We are leading ambassadors all over the world who are leading other people. And we've created an online community so you can sign up at www.sonsanddaughters.tv. I haven't used www before in a web address in a very long time. So I'm really surprised I went to that. But we love hearing from you guys. So please make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast. Leave us comments of anything that you guys want us to share or talk about. And we appreciate you guys. And until next time.